Namaste. Hello everyone. Welcome to my NPTEL course on interior design. This is our introductory lecture. So I'm going to focus on interior design and try to make you understand what is its history, what comes within the scope of this discipline and profession, how do we define it, what are the different meanings associated with it. So let's start with this course and try to build on an understanding for interior design. So as I told, we are focusing on certain keywords for today's lecture. So overall understanding about interior design, little bit about its history, and then what is the overall scope. These are the broad contents for today, and besides understanding the other things that we were talking about, importance, scope, history, we will also try to see some pioneers of design, and especially in the context of India. And there will be some examples just to understand what are the broad stages of an interior design project. Of course, we will, throughout the course, discuss more about interior design projects, case studies, etc. But these will be like broad stages to begin with, and then some references which you may refer later if you want some more in-depth understanding of certain sections or certain areas that we discussed today. So beginning, what is interior design and just trying to understand this discipline and profession. So basically, I keep saying discipline and profession because yes, there is an academic aspect to it. It's a part of academia, it's a part of education, and then of course there are professional practices associated with it. So it is a very well established discipline by now, and it is defined as the professional and comprehensive practice of creating interior environment. So it's not just about designing certain elements or objects or products, but it's about the overall environment, the overall sensory experiences, the environment in which person or human being stays for a very long time. We stay in our homes, in our offices, and we inhabit those spaces. So it is very important to have a conducive interior environment, and by doing that we respond to human needs, emotional needs, and through this interior design all these different dimensions and aspects, they can be addressed. And it's basically an amalgamation of art, science, technology. It's a very, very creative field. It does address to the functional needs, aesthetic needs, also the emotional needs of the users. So basically how I like to put it as is that, interior design has functional quotient, it has aesthetic quotient, as well as it has emotional quotient. And a perfect design is sort of a, combination of all these. And there is definitely variation, and to like some degree of variance depending on what your client wants and what is the designer's vocabulary. Sometimes it could be more functional or more aesthetic, or responding more to the human needs and emotions, but ideally it should be a combination of all these different dimensions. So interior designers basically evaluate space, they understand its usage, and they establish which design elements would best suit certain requirements that are put forward by the clientele and how they would want the spaces to be. And like I was saying, that it's a bit of a combination of art, science, technology, and we do focus a lot on health and well-being and aesthetics and the overall environment. So it basically enhances the spaces, the interior design, and it does respond to a lot of physical health as well as mental health issues, because design definitely does impact our moods and health and well-being. So that way it is a very, very crucial field of work, research as well as practice. And so basically interior design is all about how people experience spaces. So like, what is the user experience? And in that regard, it's also very much like a human-centered design. How one responds to a certain space, what kind of lighting is there within the space that could accentuate someone's mood. Is someone just reading something, or they are working, or they are making, or they are just relaxing? So it's all about experiences, and then how one caters to those experiences, and at different points in time throughout the day or throughout different seasons, how a design, is optimized to respond to all these varied and diverse needs. So functionally useful, aesthetically pleasing, and efficient. That is how, the space design has to be done, and that is the role and responsibility and job of an interior designer. So there is always this added challenge that there are not just macro level details, that is just, like a structural grid or the facade of the building, but it's like very micro level details. As like I was telling, what kind of furniture does somebody like, timber furniture or some other kind of, designs, whether it's a metal work, and whether you want a reclining chair like in one corner of your room. What is, the clientele's taste like? What are their emotional needs? What are their moods? What kinds of colors do they like? So it's a very, very micro level detail, and it does require much more involvement, at the part of the interior designer. So it's important that way that one connects to the clientele and try to understand, their also way of life and how they want the spaces to look like and feel like. So just to summarize what all we were talking about so far, interior design is a combination of art, science, technology. And this combination of art, science, technology, it helps understand and manipulate space, form, texture, color, light, all of these different elements. And then these together, when they are put together, they enhance the quality of human life and the experience within a space. So we will be talking about all these aspects throughout the course. We will talk about texture and color in the section materials and finishes, especially when we will be talking about paints. There is a lot of discussion on different kinds of textures, finishes, and colors. And when we talk about green interiors, in that entire, module, which has few lectures, we will talk about daylight and also, some kind of an artificial light and what is the importance of light in creating desirable interior spaces. And of course, we are talking about space. So, bedroom is a space, your dining room is a space, it has XYZ coordinates, it's like a volume. And since we are talking about these volumes, we are also referring to forms. So, not just shapes like rectangle, but like form which is like cube because it has a certain volume. And when we stay in a space, we inhabit a space, or, when we are within a place, there is a volume. So, I have slightly discussed about place versus space in another NPTEL course of mine also, role of craft and technology in interior architecture. And basically, to put it in a very simplistic term, like, place is very personalized and particular. It really is the reflection of the personality and who is the user. And space could be more universal. It could be like public plaza or garden where there may be a lot of people of different, you know, ages or different genders. They use that space together. So interior design has a very profound role, especially when we talk about places, because we are talking about degree of personalization and catering to the particular needs. And when we talk about certain boys room or girls room or your elderly parents room or your own, homes, it has a lot of degree of personalization and personal interest and particular habits that get reflected. So that way, a little understanding of space versus place is important. Also, to have an idea of the scale, what kind of scale do we talk about when we look at interior design in terms of profession and practice. So basically, interior designers gain knowledge of, few of these listed things. One is these different elements that I was talking about, which then you can bring together and design a very, very impressive and comfortable space. And then, of course, there is need to really learn and understand lots of software applications and very, current in-demand tools and market-ready tools which help us understand and deliver, better designs and quickly. So they may be like 2D works, 3D works, and there are different applications for producing them. It makes the work slightly easy because it's always good to show visuals, because visuals are like very powerful media, and through these concepts and sketches and drawings, it becomes easy to convey your concepts and ideas. And it is very important to also understand certain standards, protocols, and the building codes. So we will be talking about rating systems and certain codes, and especially when we talk about interior design, there is a very, very specific set of, codes. There is a very specific rating system that caters to interior design projects. We will be talking about that in detail. later when we, proceed with further lectures. So, yes, there are lots of responsibilities and different roles that interior designers can, portray and they can contribute. And there are lots of disciplines with which there are some overlaps, particularly architecture, graphic design. There are some decorative arts, of course, textiles, furnitures, and then this lighting design, color design, now getting very, very, distinct designation, like crucial disciplines in themselves. So they need a lot of comprehensive learning if you really want to specialize in either of these, or if you want to have an overall understanding of all of these. So interior designers do don, multiple hats, and they do have these different roles, and they do have overlaps with different disciplines, because like I say, there has to be some understanding of human behavior, psychology, emotional needs, colors, lighting. And when we say graphic design, so like if you have to design a wallpaper or some visual merchandising or some design within a retail store, there are lots of different elements and different kinds of important disciplines which, you might have to have overlapping interest and knowledge of those. So it is a multifaceted profession in that sense, and it does include conceptual development, space planning, overall site planning, all the way to the micro scale details, literally execution of each single piece, fabric, curtain, everything. So that way has a humongous scope, and it is a very, very comprehensive and demanding field in that sense. So what is the importance and scope of interior design? Some of it we have already been talking so far, but to understand it a bit more, in depth. So basically there is this swelling need for aesthetics, and we as humans, we do appreciate beauty, and we do appreciate powerful visuals which, accentuate our moods, and they make us feel good and happy. So this swelling need for aesthetics amplifies the importance of interior design. And, one could really elevate their existence, their lifestyle, and how they perceive the world through, interior design, and then through this kind of need for aesthetics and trying to achieve it. So, they have this very beautiful world around them. And functionality and beauty, they work together, and then that's how the interior designers aim to, optimize the space, and they try to provide the ideal surroundings for a person. Especially we are talking about contemporary times where there is so much exposure to media, social media, films, print media, and instantly there is a certain trend or vogue, or what is going on in the market, what kinds of colors, and people really want to, see that in their own spaces. So with all that exposure and information, it becomes all the more difficult that how you create USP, the unique selling point for your project, and create very customized, interesting, and innovative details. So it's very challenging, but yeah, that's the job of the interior designer. And I'm really hoping towards the end of this course, we all have a little better understanding, and we could really make good contribution in interior design projects that we undertake. So, importance of interior design, it does reflect the purpose of the space. And yes, it does define the inhabitant's personality, because there is a lot of personalization involved. And yes, the aesthetics of the place indicate how one should be in that place, and it stimulates the sensory experiences and the mood and behavior of the occupants, and it does achieve functionality, aesthetics, and emotional quotient through the medium of design. And there is a major role on how effectively the place is utilized, by people for the purpose it is designed for. So this role is achieved by trying to balance functionality, aesthetics, and efficiency, and then optimizing the overall space. So I really like this quote, which is given by Steve Jobs. Design is not what it just looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. So we have been talking about the feeling, the function, the look, the aesthetic, and all of that. If you try to balance and create a nice, amalgamation of all these, it's a good design. So yeah, I think a lot of us are fans of Steve Jobs, the way he has designed, lots of products. So if we are talking about spaces, there is a learning in that sense, the color palette, the sizes, the way the products have been envisioned and designed by him and his company. And of course, there may be a debate, and few of us may not be the fans. It's a personal thing. I'm anyway talking about personalization. So yes, the scope of interior design, it's very vast, and it ranges from practical dimensions to conceptual and artistic dimensions. And there are different kinds of spaces, as in the typology, technically speaking. So there is a retail space, a store like Adidas or Puma or any kind of a retail store. There are workspaces, office spaces, there are some commercial spaces. We have living spaces, we have our residential typology. There are public spaces, and there are also restorative spaces, some transient spaces. So these typologies vary, and according to each typology, there's a very distinct character that, through design, that character could be achieved. And all of them have slightly different scope because the typology is different, the characteristic is different, its usage is different, the user group who will be using those spaces and inhabiting them is different. So that way, yes, there are different scopes and possibilities based on these typologies. But the major roles, or like popular roles of interior designers, they are quite wide, and there are some of them which are listed over here, like, interior designer and consultant, furniture designer, product designer, lighting designer, and of course, there is interior decorator. We will try to understand the subtle nuances of decoration and design. So, interior decoration, interior design, interior architecture. There is also exhibition and set design, where a designer could play a very profound role. There are also accessories and furnishings. So, when we talk about interior design projects, there are lots of furnishings, there are carpets, there are rugs, there are curtains, you have your upholstery, your sofa and couches, what are the fabrics and finishes that are being used on that. Different kinds of accessories, different kinds of decorative objects, which can enhance the space and create a very distinct mood within that space. So, even that could be, designed in a very customized manner. And then there is, of course, color expert, which I was telling you is a very coming field in the sense that the comprehensive knowledge and understanding of color is being put to use. And we have like distinct departments for color experts. And it's evolving, of course, continuously. There are also some landscape experts, because when we talk about interior spaces, we have interior courtyards, we have our living rooms, we have many other spaces where we have brought in the outside to the inside, and we try to have lots of planters and details of landscaping, create a zen garden, etc., in the interiors of our premise. So that way, those kinds of roles are also being recognized. And then there are restoration and renovation specialists. If there is project which needs some kinds of restoration works, some kind of adaptive reuse, it's like a factory, but it's abandoned now. You would like to use it as a furniture studio or a fashion design studio. So those kinds of adaptive reuse projects are also very, very important when we talk about a discipline and profession like interior design. There are also model makers. There are people who are educators, like I am in academia and I also practice. So educators are also there. So this is a wide range, and it's a very, very comprehensive and a very elaborate field, and there are multiple roles and possibilities, in this entire world of interior design. So each one of us just need to identify what is our niche, what is it that, we best enjoy, and what is it that we best contribute to this field, and we could just pursue that. So this is the overall understanding in terms of what is the scope of interior design and what are the different roles of interior designers. Yes, so I would like to talk a bit about history of interior design, because it's very important to understand the roots and how did we coin interior design as a discipline? Did it always exist, or when did we start calling it interior design? So some interesting, fascinating historical facts and some understanding of, how we see interior design historically as a profession. So yeah, we can, actually trace the profession to even, very, very old civilizational archetypes like cave paintings. We really can look, towards history, and we can look back and we can see examples like very, very famous cave paintings at Lascaux. and how those paintings were done. There were interesting color palettes, there were signs and symbols, there was communication through those paintings. There are also creators of frescoed interiors at Pompeii. There are also creators of the frescoed interiors at Pompeii. And there are lots of interesting details, interiors and furnishings of Robert Adam and Thomas Jefferson, from the 18th century, and then also someone like FLW in the 20th. Now, this also gives us some understanding that there could be very minimalistic, interior design projects. There could be also lavish, luxurious. So, depending on what is the taste of the clientele and what is the USP and expertise of the designer. So there are some of the interior architects and designers who were very minimalistic in approach, and yet they created a very interesting environment within a space because the inhabitant is more inclined towards minimalism, and then it could be the vice versa also. Depends on the taste of the person who's going to use it and for whom you are designing. So basically, yes, the desire to create a pleasant environment is as old as civilization. But if we talk about the field of interior design, I would say it is relatively new, like just about 100 years old. And it's constantly evolving. And, in these 100 years, what began as the art of decorating has now evolved into a very, very specialized area of interior design. And it does require very, very specialized studies and lots of experience on site, on field, and lots of research also. So, in the early 20th century, the term interior decorator was first used in America, and it was used for talented people who would know how to interpret and address the design related issues, but not necessarily they had any academic credential or a degree. So there is first interior decorator, in the record, Elsie de Wolfe, and there was the first design commission that was given to her. She also published this very interesting book, the first interior design book, The House in Good Taste. And then there is also a first documented commercial interior decorator, and she established her firm in 1923, Dorothy Draper. So we find these historical references and we find this kind of data when we look into the history of interior design. So it starts somewhere from decoration, people who had this good taste and common sense and natural talent to, address the design related issues and enhance the spaces by decorating them, but they may not be trained as interior designers academically, so to say. So that's how gradually this field started developing. And then the term interior designer was coined in 1930s, and it was done by a magazine which was a popular magazine, Interior Design and Decoration. So there was already a lot of profound interest towards creating and enhancing interior spaces, and the roles of interior decorators were getting more diversified. The scope of the work was getting increased. Design was being understood like more as a technical and scientific field. And it's not just decorating something in the sense that you are not curating or assembling the products or objects of use, but literally designing everything. So if I have to talk about a light fixture, I could either go to the market, have an already standard design in the market, just bring it and install it, or depending on my client's mood, their concerns towards sustainability, their taste and inclination towards certain material palette, certain kinds of colors, I could customize and design that light fixture from the scratch and then contribute to creating an experience for my user. So that way design came into picture, where there was more understanding of this entire field, the interior environment, human needs, emotions, and people were getting trained academically with credits and who were like professionally qualified to be called as interior designers. So the largest professional organization in the field at the time, which is American Institute of Decorators, it was founded in 1931 and then it was renamed American Institute of Interior Designers in 1936, because the profession of interior design was growing continuously and it was evolving. It was getting a lot of reception. So that's how we are seeing this shift from decoration to design. In the 1970, the Foundation for Interior Design Educational Research as well as the National Council for Interior Design Qualification, these were formed, And they had to establish, maintain, and govern standards for the education and examination of interior design professionals. Because we are talking about academic credentials, we are talking about professional certification, we are talking about a certain reputation, and then people who could design, who are trained to design versus who are not academically trained. Although it's a very debatable, topic as well, because there are a few people who might not be academically trained, but they have a lot of understanding of human needs, emotions. They have exposure to different kinds of design elements, and different kinds of furniture designs, and what all is required to create and enhance a space. So it's very debatable, whether the people who are academically trained or not, and are, who is eligible, who is not. But yes, if we look at the mandates, if we look at the protocols, if we look at the standard practices which are prevalent, at least in our country, I can talk about, we do need a certain certification or degree or credential, and it only establishes, trust in the market that one is eligible and confident enough to commission and then produce certain designs. So, yeah, I would just like to leave it at that, because it could be debatable. In 1982, the first United States legislation that supported the fast evolving profession, that was passed in Alabama. So the profession was growing at a very rapid pace, and since then it has continuously evolved. So, like I was saying, that we are evolving continuously, and now we have specialized areas of critical knowledge within the interior design universe also. So the possibilities are really endless. One has to see what is it that they can bring to the table. So interior design specialties are widely accepted, increasingly. So they are the part of the norms in built environments, and there is a lot of profound role of interior designers when the concerns like health, safety, welfare of public spaces and people, that is concerned. So interior designers are getting more and more recognition in that sense. And it's not just limited to universal design, gender neutral design, fire resistant design, sustainable design, but there are very, very unique, specific, distinct fields, like I was telling, visual merchandising, color design, etc., etc. So, since the middle of the 20th century, the term interior decorator has been rarely applied, because the term interior design started getting more recognition and broader reception, and it got the status of a serious profession. So, yes, since the middle of the 20th century, it has gained that status, and there are lots of institutes across the world where there is this professional degree of interior design or interior architecture, and there are lots of professionals and very famous ones also, whom we really know, like good interior designers who have carved a niche for themselves and created this unique selling point through their projects, which focus on interior spaces and micro level details. So I have been referring to this term interior architecture, on and off throughout this discussion so far. So basically, in some European countries where this profession is well established, the interior design is also known as interior architecture. Or let me try to put it this way, that interior architecture is slightly more evolved field, and it is seen as a very, very comprehensive field which is more evolved and more mature than the interior design. So if I can just broadly try to explain it, it's a cohesive term which sorts of addresses the interior environment as well as the overall architectural envelope and the structure and macro to micro level details when you create any kind of a project. And I have this elaborate lecture on just explaining interior architecture in my previous NPTEL course, which I talked about in the beginning of discussion also. So if you're more interested in trying to understand the subtle nuances, you may refer to that one. So, yes, so basically, there is also a field like environmental design, where there are many elements that shape man made environment. And the people who are close to working towards that kind of design approach, they refer the field as environmental design. So, there is interior decoration, there is interior design, there is interior architecture, there is environmental design. These have like subtle overlaps, but interior design is a very, very popular field. Interior architecture is slowly catching up because it takes into account the cohesive approach of designing also the interior spaces in terms of architectural details, and then blurring the boundary between the outside to the inside, the macro to the micro, and designing it in a very cohesive and comprehensive manner. So we were talking about Lascaux a while ago, and why I'm coming back to that is because through those paintings we can also understand, the finishes, the colors, the textures, and those paintings give a very, very crucial understanding of these aspects which we utilize today. And throughout history we have known interior design projects to have integrally employ paintings, engravings, reliefs, sculptures, textures, finishes. So it's like connecting the dot and what we can learn from the past, and then we have this tradition and continuity, how today for contemporary markets these finishes have evolved, the textures have been redesigned, what are new innovative reliefs or what kinds of wallpapers or different kinds of finishes can be produced now. But because we are trying to also connect the dots and look through the history, I'm giving this very interesting example of Lascaux, and we can see these kinds of paintings that you see on the screen, which of course talk about human needs in terms of communicating, and then aesthetics because of a certain color pigment which was achieved through natural minerals, whatever was available to the people at that time. And this is an expression, so it is in that sense very profound design, and we get to understand and learn composition elements that we see in the design of these paintings, and how they inspire today's interiors also, and our technical understanding of colors, finishes, and textures. So I was talking about colors. So we see, red, yellow, different kinds of multiple colors in these paintings. We see different kinds of figurines. We see humans, animals, and there is this multiplicity of mineral pigments, and those colors we see, translated on these images, on these caves. So there is this very, very important role of colors when we talk about interior spaces. And there is this scientific understanding also, like how the color might have been applied. So in those times there were like very, very different methods of doing that, and what we will see in our discussion on paints and finishes, we will see how we apply through trowel, rollers, and sprays. But earlier there was a very, very different method of applying suspension of pigment in either animal fat or calcium rich groundwater or other methods. So, of course, there is this evolution of skills, techniques, and with time and changing technology, our designs, our applications, and our methods also change. So, I'm going to now run through very briefly some Indian pioneers of design. And of course, there may be a little bias because I have tried to put this list together and I'm very fond of all of these designers. But this is very small list and it's not restricted to these people only. There are lots of people whom we will, get to know throughout this course, and we will see the glimpses of different projects, their designers, their makers throughout, as we proceed. But these are some of my favorite ones to begin with. So we talk about Gajanan Upadhyay over here. He is known as the father of Indian furniture design. We lost him recently. And he always emphasized the spirit of humility and service in design. And he's really known for exquisite furniture designs, and especially he has represented India globally through his designs. Then we talk about MP Ranjan. He's one of my favorites. I have had several discussions with him at NID Ahmedabad while I was studying and working at CEPT. And I can't even begin to put in words, what was the experience of learning from him, listening to his lectures and having discussions. And he's also not with us anymore, but his legacy continues through his works. And he's very famous for his 3 books. Handmade in India, it's just like a very, very good book, and I really refer it, to everyone, recommend it to everyone. It's available online. It's like an encyclopedia of Indian handicrafts. Then there is Bamboo and Cane Crafts of Northeast India, and then there is Young Designers, which, talks about graduates from the NID. So his works are quite open, available on the internet. He has blogs. Then this is Samira Rathor. I have high regards for Samira because she has really, created a niche for herself. I see her as an interior architect because she has this cohesive approach of, designing everything from macro to micro in a very synchronized and very effective and interesting manner. And there's a lot of focus on playful shapes, eclectic designs, cohesive approach of interior and exterior, like I was explaining. So she's Mumbai based. And then Bijoy Jain, huge fan again, known for his material sensibilities and also the approach to interior architecture that bridges the gap between vernacular and modern, so and contemporary. There are some stages of an interior design project that I would just like to browse through and explain because we will have more discussions on specific, drawings and stages and how the project is executed. But broadly speaking, there are certain stages. And because we are talking about stages, stages do give us an idea of the entire process. And that's why I like this quote: good design is about process, not product. So, when we understand those stages, we are a part of a very rigorous process which we must embrace and enjoy. So, broadly speaking, there is this furniture layout which is very important to be understood. So, once we have understanding of the overall concept, what will be the concept of the design, the overarching theme, then, a basic furniture layout is prepared with standard dimensions. And the thing is that you have to really understand, if you look at the screen, what kind of furniture, where the sofa will go, where the bed will go, how much should be the circulation space between the wall and the bedroom. So, slowly we will get a hang of all of these things. So, we start with this basic layout, and the execution work on the site can start accordingly. So that is how it happens. And the other decoration and selection work can be done later, or if it is an exception or unless specified, it can also happen simultaneously. But otherwise, generically, first we make this basic layout. Then there is civil layout. One has to decide which existing walls to retain, which have to be broken down. Are there any new walls to be constructed? Is it a new construction or adaptive reuse or restoration? So, accordingly, these kinds of decisions are taken. And then this is also made as per the confirmed furniture layout in association with that. Then there is plumbing layout. I will probably refrain from explaining the entire drawing at this stage. We have a discussion upcoming on the drawings as well. But just to give a broader idea, one has to understand the plumbing layout also. It's a part of services. There is a soil line, there is a water line, waste line. All of that has to be understood. So it's not like a very glamazon profession where we just give some colorful concepts. We have to understand functionality and services and all of these aspects. There is electrical layout, of course, where your switchboards will go, where will the fixtures be, installed, where is the placement on the wall, where is your MSB, the main switchboard and distribution board, and those kinds of details. So these kinds of drawings and layouts have to be prepared, then the indexing has to be done, it has to be placed and shown where the entire fixture and everything will go, where the wire will go, where will be the switchboard. Switchboards can also be custom designed. So there is a huge scope, depends on your involvement, scope of the project, equation with the clientele, budget, all of that. Then there is ceiling layout. Ceiling layout is very important when we talk about interior design projects because there is a lot of, affinity and inclination towards getting false ceilings design as distinct element within a space. So, what is the drop level? Is there some kind of a service that needs to be installed, between the main RCC slab or other kind of material slab and your false ceiling? And then, are there any patterns or motifs or any other kind of design you want to achieve in your false ceiling? What is the material palette through which it is done? Does it have to accommodate services or, air conditioners and other fixtures? So, those designs have to be understood in terms of these technical services and installation of fixtures and, air conditioners and all those things. Plus, there is a layer of design, pattern, color, and what is the play of the levels, etc. So it's very, very important part of the interior design drawing portfolio. And there is also flooring layout. So basically, what is the flooring like? Are you putting tiles there, or there is stone flooring? How many pieces? What is the size? And like if you see over here, let's say this corner. So whether I'm starting my tile here, and then if I will have to put these arrows, I'll have to make a tile laying plan. So I start from here, and then in this direction I start putting tiles, and they go like this. So one has to also understand, how the laying of tiles is to be done. Where do you want your cracks to be hidden? Like where the full tile should be seen and where the broken should go. So one has to even make these drawings. What is the starting point and the direction of laying the tiles or the stone or whatever flooring you have designed? So these kinds of important aspects have to be kept in mind in interior design project. There are very, very intricate micro level details. And then, of course, you can do your main design and elevations, and it goes as per the concept how you would like all your interior wall elevations to look like. And there is a lot of role of different elements, and what are the different concepts that you have put together after discussing with your client, and what kinds of textures are you trying to achieve, what is the color palette that you have given. So overall, after doing all these stages, a good, sensitive and responsible interior designer is able to achieve a visual appeal and a feel within a space that is designed by them. So these are the overall stages. And this is the design concept that you try to give to your client and the end user, and you make mood boards and storyboards. What are the different kinds of elements that can be taken? Sometimes a few clients demand that, that the interior designer takes them to these different stores, or, if there are customized designs, they show them the models or prototypes so that they can have a better understanding of what these products or designs actually look like. So this is when there is some sort of a curation that happens. But if it is all customized, then you can show them digital models, or you could just show them prototypes, actual models, physical models. So it all depends on the part of your process and how many initiatives you take, and as an individual, what is your way of working. So these are, sorts of drawings and concepts that you present to your client, and then they are also needed for the execution on site. So this is the sectional elevation of a washroom wall. Where will the mirror go, and where will be the wash basin, where will be the WC, what is the thickness of the wall, all those kinds of details. So when we talk about interior design drawings, we give a lot of specifications, whether it's a Kajaria tile or any other kind of tile in the bathroom. It should be ideally, not slippery. So then whether it's a matte finish or what kind of finish. So I am not discussing in details because we have a separate section on that. But yes, in your interior design project drawings, we have to give all these specifications and details. Then this is another sectional elevation, and you get to see over here your POP fall ceiling, which is your plaster of Paris, and then what is the drop from here to here. These kinds of details our drawings give. They give material specifications, technical specifications, also the sizes, because there are some standard sizes that you get in the market. So those kinds of details have to be given for interior design project, and therefore they are very elaborate drawing portfolios. Okay, so everything is designed. Few things are designed well. I really like it. So for that matter, we see design in everything that surrounds us. There is some degree or some level of design. But the job and the role of interior designers, it's to design them well and to understand the human needs and functionality. So it's an interesting quote to sum up. Next, we will be talking about, interior design, decoration, architecture. Again, the subtle nuances. We touched a bit about it today. And some references that may come handy. These are some books that you see over here. And then there are some web references. All right, thank you. I'll see you next time.